Today is Monday, April 29th. It's a beautiful day in New York City as the Mets salvage a couple series, one of them in walk-off fashion. Let's talk about the week that was in Mets baseball.
Let's talk about it.
Shea Station, Jerry and Jolly. Shea Station, Jerry and Jolly. Riding through the airwaves, bringing you the heat. Come on, pull up my fans. Now get up out your seat. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. Now you're listening to Shea Station.
Welcome back to the Shea Station podcast. It's a beautiful day today. I will be at Citi Field tonight, I being Jolly Olive, who's on the wrong side in my studio. I'm feeling very naked today. The mic wasn't working on my usual side, so I've switched sides. So I'm going to be dealing with that the whole episode. But meanwhile, Jerry Blevins joins me from Ohio, looking nice and comfortable in his studio. Jerry, how you doing, man?
I am comfortable. I'm home. Made it home last night late after the game. I'm upset because while you feel naked, you're not naked. So I have to stare at you fully clothed, which is a loss for me.
We can do like a little bit of chest.
I mean, you have been rocking the chest hair and the chain. The hair's on point. So
why hide it? I'm Italian and proud.
You should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm happy to be here, man. I'm home. Got to see my boys. There's nothing like. So I snuck in, and when I'm away, my wife. This has started when we first started dating, and I tried to get her to crate our dog.
Okay.
And then when I leave and go on the road trip, the dog sleeps in the bed, and then that's how it goes.
Of course.
Our boys have their own beds, and they sleep in them when I'm home. When I'm gone, she snuggles up with both boys. And so I got home late last night, and they're already in bed. And so I have to go to the guest room.
Aww.
Because I can't fit on the bed. And so I kissed them all that I was home. But this morning I snuck down, and there's nothing like, seeing my son, his eyes light up as he jumps into my arms and like squeezes me so hard because he missed me. Like I love what I do. I enjoy it so much. But when I get home, that's a fun feeling, and it makes it hard to go away, but it also is nice to be missed.
Jerry, you're going to make me cry on a Monday morning. That was beautiful.
Aww.
Beautifully sweet.
I mean, we ended on a good note as far as the Mets go. That was an exciting game.
Yeah, I think we needed an exciting win because outside of yesterday, it was a little bit of a dull and dreary week in Mets baseball. But yesterday, some absolute fireworks in a game that I really was afraid we were going to lose, even though it kind of felt like we had it the entire way. We just weren't scoring with our opportunities. We got the best Mets start of the year from Jose Quintana, who's kind of the de facto ace of the rotation. Absolutely loved Mendoza going out to get the ball when he was 7 2/3, and Quintana just saying, "No, I got it. I've thrown 6 pitches this inning," and Mendoza just says, "All right." And then Quintana finished it off against one of the best hitters in the National League this year, Wilson Contreras. But we go to extras, and Mark Vientos, the forgotten man, gets to play hero in the end with a big 2-run home run. So much to love from that game. You were on the post-game show yesterday, which, by the way, don't doubt Jerry's work ethic, guys. New York yesterday, Ohio today doing the show. What are your thoughts on that big win?
Oh, man, so many performances. I felt like the Mets were going to win, but I also felt like this is a game that they might find a way to lose in classic Mets form. When Liberator was dealing out of the bullpen, it felt like one of those moments where one guy in the bullpen just like throws 6 shutout. You know what I mean? Like it's happened before. But they got to him. Harrison Bader down to the last strike gets a huge knock on a 97-mile-an-hour fastball up to score the tying run. And then that sets up Tyrone Taylor, who was down to, I think it was 1-2, I think. But he tried to elevate again, and he hit the top of the zone versus the chase. And Tyrone crushed that ball. It was, or not Tyrone, it was Vientos, of course. Drives the ball to right center. Huge win. You nailed it. Quintana was great. That was a fun moment. I'd like to start with Carlos Mendoza if we
Okay.
could. You cool with that?
Totally.
I think we found one, man.
Yeah.
I feel I have been so impressed from the moment that he signed, like his first press conference, the way he handled himself, the way he answers questions. I've been so impressed. Having multiple chances to chat with him, he just has that air of control and care. Like he cares about his players. He's smart. He's paying attention. But he also like that relationship that he has with his players from the get-go for a first-time manager. I'll go back to the San Francisco start. You noted that he pulled Sean Manaea one out short of a win,
Right.
or a chance to get a win. And it was kind of controversial. That's a tough thing to do, to pull from a veteran starting pitcher, but he did it with confidence. He did it in a good way, spoke highly of Manaea. It wasn't a disrespectful moment. It didn't feel like that because of the respect, the mutual respect that they have for each other. That was a good sign because he did it, and I think it was the right move. And then last night or yesterday, Quintana had been dealing leading up to that, but that's not a good matchup. And Mendoza spoke on that in the postgame. He's like, I had every intention of switching it. That he had a couple of really good at bats already against Quintana. He's looked great this entire series, Contreras at the plate. But Quintana's demeanor, his focus, the way his confidence was allowed Carlos Mendoza to stay in the moment, not be overwhelmed by the decision to make. And he stuck with his guy. And Quintana paid it off in such a big way. He had a huge at bat. He looked great, but Mendoza then understood after the game. He was talking about Vientos, and there was a few things that he said that are little moments of a glimpse into why I have a deeper appreciation for this guy. And he talked about Vientos, and he spoke on his career. And this guy wasn't in the organization until the offseason, but he did his homework. He understood. He's talked to Vientos. He understands exactly where he's at in his career. And that's rare for a new guy to come in, but also be understanding of the history of each player, where they come from, where they've been, what they're doing. And so he knew that was a big moment for Vientos. And then he said, he'll be in that lineup tomorrow, which is today, because he earned that. So I don't know what Vientos has in store as far as, when Starling Marte comes back, which is imminent. I think it's tomorrow, or Tuesday. But I love everything about the way Carlos Mendoza has handled himself, handled the bullpen, handled the lineup, getting guys in. He's getting Nido at the dish, behind the dish more. Nido's a better defensive catcher than Omar Narvaez. Nido has looked really good at the plate outside of the Andrew Kittredge at bat where he looked overmatched.
Sure.
And he's going to get that because he's not amazing at the dish, but he's produced. And he's not just saying, well, Narvaez is our backup, so now he's going to be our primary. He's allowing himself to play the hot hand in a sense. And so I like what I've seen on all fronts, even the way he's handled the post-game interviews and pre-game interviews where a reporter will ask a silly question, or a reporter will ask a question that's already been asked, and the way he answers the questions, where I've seen, and it's early, so maybe in September he'll lose a little bit of that gentlemanness, but
Sure.
the way he composes himself, the way he dodges answering questions, but still answers a question and isn't disrespectful. I'm very happy with where he is, the fact that he's the Mets manager. I think they found a guy that is going to be a manager in the big leagues for a very long time.
And that's high praise from you because you were in the league for a dozen years. You had to deal with coaches you liked, coaches you didn't like, and to get early rave reviews not only from fans but media alike is really cool for Carlos Mendoza. And I think yesterday was kind of just a good summary of what he kind of brings to the table as a manager. Between his bullpen management was great. He was able to pocket Reed Garrett for a couple extra innings. Not using Adam Ottavino in the Quintana spot enabled him to get him ready for a potential 11th inning, which never came, of course. And a big thing for Mendoza throughout these series, even in the losses too, is that he's using his bench a ton. Like, he's pinch hitting late in games. He's not afraid to pinch hit for the catcher. He's not afraid to, give DJ Stewart an at-bat against a lefty or use Mark Vientos in place of Brett Baty. He's got bodies and he wants to use them. He believes in all of his guys. And you saw that in the end of the final game there with Mark Vientos getting that huge at-bat. Both him and Bader were down 0-2, I believe, in their at-bats, and then battled back to get these clutch hits. Bader, I was losing faith a little bit there. He was down 0-2, swung at both first two pitches, and then just got one to hit. I don't really know what the thought process was with that pitch, but Liberatore was a pitch away from sealing up a sweep for the Cardinals, and instead, a couple pitches later, he loses that game. So the Mets, I don't want to say they were lucky to come away with the win, because I do think they earned it, but
they outplayed him, but they definitely tried to give that game away. There was just so many opportunities.
Right, exactly. And this was an overarching theme with the offense this entire series. I believe their final tally with runners in scoring position, they went 4 for 34, which is a 118 average, 1 for 16 in the final game. But we said this a lot in 2022. There were games like this, which kind of is discouraging and encouraging at the same time, because to get 16 opportunities with runners in scoring position is really good. That means you're table setting pretty much every inning. But when inning after inning, you're not getting the big hit, it is an infuriating watch. And that was pretty much this entire weekend series with the Cardinals, even going back to the Giants series as well, where the Mets were able to eke out one win. It was a story of not converting on a lot of those opportunities. But at the same time, when they were on that huge win streak, that's exactly what they were doing. They were putting up runs in pretty much every inning. They were answering back, scoring late. And the key to that formula is the bullpen pitching well, which has still been the case even in this tough 2-4 stretch over the past week. I want to jump there if that's okay with you, because there's just a lot of bodies that have been contributing, and I think that's really cool.
I'm cool with that. I have that in my notes as well.
Hell yes. I mean, first of all, just roster turnover in general. Mark Vientos was only here because Starling Marte hits the bereavement list, like you mentioned before. He should be back tomorrow. But I think it's going to be a really interesting roster decision when we get Marte back, because who goes out then? Do you send Mark Vientos down after he goes 3 for 4 in his first 2 games? He gives the Mets probably their biggest hit of the season so far. I'm not really sure what they're going to do there, but what they are going to continue to do is cycle arms in and cycle arms out, and they have a ton of good arms to choose from. In Game 1 and Game 2, both losses, but Josh Walker, Sean Reed-Foley, and Dedniel Nunez, 3 guys who did not start the year in the Mets bullpen, give them 5 shutout innings, 1 hit allowed. And that's just kind of the story of how the Mets are going to be winning ball games this year, is just dipping into their plethora of pitching depth in the relief corps. Outside of that, I want to give some shout outs to Jorge Lopez, who has quietly been one of the most valuable players for the Mets this year. Since his, kind of scary save in Atlanta, he's tossed 7 2/3 shutout innings with 8 strikeouts. And these aren't even the main guys. Like, between Diaz, Ottavino, and Reed Garrett, who we're huge fans of now, the Mets just have so much depth back there. So if you're worried about this past week of Mets baseball, just know that even if they, go 1 for 16 with runners in scoring position, they can still win a close game because of how good their pitching's been. And I find it hard to believe that they're going to go 1 for 16 very often.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, their starting pitching has given them a deficit to overcome. So you've been down basically every game because your starting pitcher gives up a crooked number early. Yeah. the offense actually put up a 4 spot against Sonny Gray, who's one of the best pitchers in the game right now. So there's that. But the bullpen has kept them within striking distance every single game. That is the key to when your team is in an offensive lull where they're not scratching runs to be able to at least have an opportunity to win. Those middle guys, Sean Reed Foley's looked very, very good. Reed Garrett has been the best reliever in baseball above Edwin Diaz. He has the most strikeouts of any relief pitcher. He has the most wins, tied for the most wins of any pitcher in the league.
And he's got a save too. Hell yeah.
And a save, yes. And that's another Mendoza moment to be like, hey, this guy was a low leverage guy. We're going to get him into a high leverage. We're still going to push him. He's not like you can't push Ottavino the way you push Reed Garrett.
Right.
You can't push Edwin Diaz the way, and Edwin Diaz still isn't all the way locked in, and he's dialing it up and looking great. But their bullpen has been the backbone of this entire season so far. It's not always going to be like that. You're going to need your offense, and they did it for a stretch. You're going to need your offense to put up a couple of just, trounce games where you can go and relax a little bit. But for me, the biggest concern is starting pitching, and Quintana saved a lot of people a lot of heartache by having an incredible start. The first time he's pitched into the 8th inning in like 4 years or something like that. And he gave up 1 run on 3 hits, and that was a manufactured run. Yep. Like that was like small ball, no hit, sacrifice, squeeze bunt. And that, to me, first of all, I want to talk about that for a moment.
Sure.
Squeeze bunt. First and third, Ciani batting $110, but with wheels, and has a lot of sack bunts in his career. Clearly a bunt situation. Carlos Mendoza is telling the guys to watch the bunt.
Sure.
We didn't cover it in the post game, but we had it ready to go. But because of the heroics that happened, you obviously highlight the big things. Brett Baty has to move way further in. He was out of position from the jump. He was in the stone or in the dirt still, where he should have been way further in the grass, eliminating that. If Ciani gets a knock by you, so be it. Yeah. But a bunt is a very high possibility, and that is a run that could be the difference in the ball game at that point. Move up, cut it down. He ended up making an error, and he got on first anyway. But cut that off to where you can get the guy at home. I was very disappointed to see the positioning of Brett Baty. I've been a fan. He started off the season hot in his hamstring. I don't know if he's back or whatever the case may be, but he looks like he's fallen back into the bad habits that have hurt his defense, hurt his offense. I don't know what it is, but he just hasn't looked the part. And even when he was struggling this year, he looked the part, like he could do it.
Right.
He's looked lost.
Yeah, I think it's that tight hamstring. I think it's still bothering him, because ever since that ailment where he didn't go on the IL, rested for I think 4 days and then came back, he hasn't hit well, and his defense has kind of suffered a little bit. I still think that he's much sharper defensively than he was last year, even with that gaff in the last game there. But hitting wise, he's 3 for 24. With just 1 extra base hit since coming back from the issue.
Gross.
Yeah, he's just topping balls, grounding balls a lot more, and that's what we saw a lot of the past 2 years.
So pure speculation here, no inside info or any of it, but I could see them ILing Baty to keep Vientos. Let Baty get his rest. Let Vientos have some length here. And if it comes to a point and they're like, hey, look, Vientos is hot. Mendoza has already shown that he's going to watch baseball, and this offense needs production.
Yep.
If he's producing, it's right there. You send him on a rehab. You send Baty on a rehab assignment, and then option him if you need to do. I mean, it's there.
Yeah.
I want Baty to succeed. He's a left-handed bat. I like him. But right now you need to win ball games, and he's not helping you do that. So
It's tough because you don't want to hurt his confidence. I think that's what happened last year a little bit. But at the same time, like Vientos makes this, I guess, a good problem to have because at least you do have an option when Baty is struggling. So if you're right about that, we got to clip that and send that out and, do a little Jerry Stradamus there.
I want to touch on something that Mark Vientos said in his post game, which
Sure.
he's shown a maturity of handling the situation. He talked about Carlos Mendoza mentioned it too. He talked about controlling what you can control. You don't have control of the strike zone. You don't have control of the roster. That guy earned a spot in spring training. He was kind of battling. He earned that spot. He had a great spring,
Right.
and then circumstances outside of his control happened, and he could be bitter. But instead, he realized, like, that's not going to help me. I don't want to be a bad teammate. I don't want to be bitter because it's going to affect my play. And then when they do need somebody, I'm not playing well. Why would they go to me? So he's matured in the sense that I'm not saying he did that before, but I think he's more aware of what it takes to be the guy where he's at in his career. And the one thing that he said last night when they asked him about that walk-off moment, he said, it felt like a deja vu moment. I had pretended I've been in those situations as a little kid, and I imagined myself doing that, and then I did it. And it was like the fruition of a dream within a dream. Like, it was so cool. And I always felt that way. Like that hit me deep because that's how I was. I always imagined myself in scenarios like you talk about, envisioning yourself, visualizing what it is. It was always bottom of the ninth inning, game 7 of the World Series, bases loaded, and I'm facing Ken Griffey Jr. Like, then when in the playoffs, it relates to what many guys have said, but Max Scherzer said, pressure is a privilege.
Yeah.
I felt that way. And I think Mark Vientos related because you realize that, hey, I have a chance to hit a walk-off home run in the big leagues. This is fun. This is amazing. You don't get nervous, you get excited. That makes me think that Mark Vientos is ready for any big moment because he could take a deep breath and be like, hey, this is fun. I have a chance to be a hero. I don't have to be a hero because it's very hard to do that. But it makes me feel like he'll be at his best when you need him. Because that's when I was at my best because I slowed everything down and took advantage of that moment because the other guy's nervous. I think Vientos, again, it's easy to be high on a guy that just hit a walk-off home run. But I liked the things that I've heard, the way he carried himself, and the production is good. I just wanted to touch on that part.
No, totally. I think he also said something like, this is the best feeling I've ever had, which is just, it's a cool human moment because you think of all the adversity he's faced, not only this year, not making the team out of opening day, but, the past 2 years as well, just not being able to keep his spot when given that opportunity. I really hope he gets the start today. Not only because he deserves it, but I just feel like a lot of the Mendoza did say, yeah, he said, I'm pretty sure he'll be in the lineup tomorrow. So don't go back on that. Don't betray my trust. Because he definitely deserves it here. And you kind of alluded to it in your storytelling there. Circumstances being JD Martinez, who we were 25 minutes into this pod. We haven't mentioned that guy once. He made his debut in this series, looked pretty good at the plate. And what a funny time for Mark Vientos to come up and make his mark on the team with JD Martinez finally being activated. The Mets kind of have a good problem right now of a lot of bodies that they can put into the lineup. Like DJ Stewart's found playing time. JD Martinez collects a multi-hit game, gets an RBI double. Then Mark Vientos gets this big at bat. It's interesting. After a 2-4 week, I don't feel bad. I feel like the Mets were in a lot of these ball games. They could have played a little bit better in both series, but at the same time, like, I just feel like better games are on the horizon. They were still setting the table. They're still getting good innings. They got 2 good starts this past week too, between Quintana and Severino's start in San Fran, that I'm really excited for this Cubs series. I'm really curious to see what Mendoza does with his lineup. Does Tyrone Taylor get more playing time? He's looked absolutely awesome. Does Mark Vientos start more than one game? Where do you put JD Martinez in the lineup? Like, there's a lot of questions to be asked and answered. So outside of all that, we do need to give a quick shout out to Pete Alonso for his 200th home run in that rally against Sonny Gray. That 2-run homer, number 200 on his career, moves him to 4th all-time in the Mets home run list, the 4th ever Met to do so. It's weird. It hasn't felt like Pete has really gone fully this season. Like, he's still putting up Pete numbers, but it doesn't feel like we've seen that really hot Pete stretch yet. And yet, if I'm correct here, yeah, he's still got 8 home runs on the year, an 841 OPS. I still think there's room for Pete to grow, though.
I agree with everything you said there. He's the 4th fastest player in MLB history to 200 home runs in number of games played.
With 2020.
It's insane. The dude, give him 2020, and he's pushing. Instead of like getting to 200, I think he probably would have broken
250.
Darryl Strawberry's team record this season.
Probably.
You know, if you add that extra 100 games. He's a franchise player. I think his skill set on the market. I don't know if he's going to get what he wants. I hope he ends up a Met. I think his skill set is undervalued now in today's game because home runs are down. Run producers are not looked at the same because there's more athleticism, speed in the game, higher defensive value. I think Pete is going to be undervalued on the market. But I do hope he ends up a Met. But congratulations to him, man. That's amazing.
Huge 200. Accomplishment. Really, really cool. And it's weird because I feel like in even like our past 3 episodes, like we haven't been talking as much about like the core guys. Like Nimmo's had a weird year. Lindor had a really weird week. He had one of the worst games of his career and one of the best games of his career in the same week. And then Alonso reaches the 200 homer plateau. But it really is the story of this Mets team and their ceiling. It really relies on the role players stepping up and making big contributions like Tyrone Taylor did both in San Fran and in this series and like Mark Vientos did yesterday. So really, it's a very interesting team. I can't quite put my finger on who is even going to be in this lineup every day like a month from now because I feel like it could be totally different. And maybe that's because of how Stearns operates a roster with the constant, turnover and options and all that. But at the same time, there's a weirder, I guess, kind of specialer feeling about the team, and it really was encapsulated with that fun win yesterday.
I think you nailed this season on the head there. The core guys, Nimmo, Lindor, Pete's been fine, but nothing spectacular. There's no Kodai Senga. So like your big 4 there, Francisco Alvarez was supposed to be a highlight. Right. He's underperformed, and now he's hurt and going to be gone for a while. They've been missing him, by the way. But those 5 guys were supposed to be the 5 biggest guys of the whole season, and they will be still. But they're 1 game over 500 or 2 games over 500 now. No, they're
just 1. Yeah.
They're 1 game over, and they haven't had their best players carry the team at all yet. And they've won some series against some very good ball clubs, but they've also played like their best players haven't been carrying their team because they've lost some series and looked terrible. So, but that to me is a bright thing. Like that's a what if kind of moment to see if these guys get hot, what they could do. Lindor can throw the team on his back for a couple of weeks. Nimmo is very capable of doing it. He's had a weird season. He doesn't look bad. He just hasn't had success on a consistent basis.
Still getting his walks.
Yeah, but you nailed it. It's a weird year so far. You're getting contributions from guys that you didn't think were going to. I mean, Reed Garrett is one of the pillars of this season so far and like barely talked about. He's figured out his pitch mix and consistency, and he's been lights out. Like you said, the bottom half of the roster has been pushing this team over the edge because they've been outproducing what they were expected to do. and the underproduction of the top 13 guys in a sense. Because McNeil's also one of those guys, and he's
Right.
been not good. So your guys that you're relying on haven't been great. So, and Mendoza's been mentioning that. He's like, look, this is a long season. I think we got a lot left in the tank. Once again, the biggest worry is consistency on the rotation. But Quintana has shown that he's capable of being great, but he's always going to be good. Severino has looked really good, but not great yet. He hasn't been able to get deep. He's been every start this season, he's allowed 3 runs or less.
Right.
That's really, really good. You'll take that every time. But you're going to need other guys to step up. And they've got more options coming because McGill's on rehab. David Peterson's coming back. You got Kodai Senga possibility at the end of May.
Yep.
You've got a team that could look very different in a few weeks. It's crazy to think about.
And that's the biggest thing, man. Like if I asked you point blank from the outset, like, hey, we're at the end of April. Alvarez is injured. McGill is injured. Drew Smith is injured. Brooks Raley is injured. Brandon Nimmo is below league average. So is Francisco Lindor, McNeil, Baty. Like everyone that we thought would be great is either underperforming or injured. Did you really think that the Mets would be a winning team at this point? Because in my opinion, the answer would be no. And it's because of what you said, the bottom half of the roster stepping up. You can't tell me that has nothing to do with a new managerial hire. There's no, I mean, even if you want to go baseball science, full on statistics, analytics, whatever, be driven that way. There's no shot in hell that this Mets team is 14-13 without new blood at the top like Carlos Mendoza. And I think it's been a really cool storyline to follow in April, to be this interested in a manager hire. Because Buck in 2022 was a really nice change of pace, a breath of fresh air, but it's been rare that like a new Mets managerial hire gets me talking about it so much. Like Luis Rojas, I thought he was a competent, well-adjusted baseball mind, but it never really felt like there was a big time connection there. I'm not even going to bring up Mickey Callaway. So, I mean, outside of that,
you should.
I mean, Mickey Callaway was a disaster. He inherited a incredibly talented team in 2019 and actively prevented them from succeeding to the area that they should have. So to see
Correct.
a manager step up and be the difference in a lot of close games that could have been lost after an 0-5 start is really cool to see. I mean, the Mets' top 4 hitters right now, Alonso, no surprise, DJ Stewart, Starling Marte, Tyrone Taylor. That's just, you can't predict that. You really can't.
Tyrone Taylor is a hell of a ball player.
Fun to watch.
He can play defense, sneaky. By the way, that play yesterday where they scored that run in the 11th, the top of the 11th, right. I think Tyrone Taylor had him at the plate.
Yeah, it was kind of a bad send.
It was, but also Siani had a terrible jump. Yeah. He hesitated, took a step back. He flies. He should have been there easy. But Tyrone Taylor has a good arm. Like he made a good play. I'm happy with Pete. Pete made the right decision ultimately to get that out, because you're basically conceding that one run, and it ended up obviously getting them a chance to win the game. Wilson Contreras being out there and not remembering how many outs there are helps too. But I love Tyrone Taylor as a player. If he were on another team, he would be a everyday outfielder, because I think he's that good. But he fits perfectly, and he's poised. He's a ball player, dude. He's an athlete. I like him. He's a good find. Adrian Hauser, this might be one more start.
It's been tough.
See, that's again, I'm starting to snowball here a little bit. Quintana was one small tweak away from locking in. I don't expect 8 shutout or 8 1-run every time.
Sure. But
he's back, because the shape of his curveball was excellent. His changeup looked really good. He was throwing into righties with that 4-seamer, getting it to where he needed it. Adrian Hauser, on the other hand, I don't know if it's one tweak to his mechanics, because the ball's doing what it's supposed to do. He just has no idea where it's going.
Right.
So I don't think there's one quick fix. Christian Scott could be calling. Joey Lucchesi could be the guy. You got I don't know if they wait for McGill and Peterson. I think they might go get him. He's got one more start, I think, in my head. I would give him one more start.
Mendoza kind of backed him up, said this is, we got to help him get fixed or whatever the exact quote was. It does feel like one more go around though. ERA is near 9, and Peterson and McGill, for what it's worth, both went 6 up, 6 down in their rehab starts this past week. Kodai Senga is throwing a live bullpen session in New York. Like, there are reinforcements on the way, so I'm sure there is a ticking clock on Hauser's stay. But at the end of the day, before this last Jose Quintana start, I didn't have a ton of confidence in him. The guy didn't make it into the 6th inning at all. He was limiting damage, but he looked very hittable. And then he went out and he had a terrific start. And now I'm all the way back in on him. The same thing can happen for Adrian Hauser. I'm just not sure what the path is to get there. But he won't be pitching in the Chicago series. Instead, we got our 3 lowest ERA pitchers on the Mets this year in the rotation: Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, and Jose Budo, which, again, same thing with the highest producing hitters. No way to predict that. It's just guys stepping up and signings working out. We're welcoming in the Cubs.
It's a 4-game series, right?
I have 3 here. Am I wrong? Let's find out. I've been wrong before. It's definitely happened.
So have I, though.
Let's see. If it's 4, that's fun. Well, I'm going tonight. It is a 4-game series, Jerry. I was slacking.
So he will pitch.
So he will pitch in that final game. Interesting. Okay. Well, we're welcoming in a pretty good Cubs team. They did just lose 2 out of 3 to the Red Sox, but like you mentioned before, there could be some more pitching roster turnover. Like Lucchese's looked great. Christian Scott has looked great. The Mets have options. They're going to continue to use them, but I'm really excited for this series. I think it's a good test for the Mets. For some reason, I always feel like they play better when they're playing just better teams in general. Like they won the Dodgers series, then they lose 2 series in a row to teams that are either at their level or worse. So I'm happy that they're going to get a challenge at home. And who are you? Let me ask you this: who's a player you're looking out for, keeping your eye on this week on the Mets roster?
On the Mets roster?
Yeah.
Oh man. It's outside. I'm gonna stick with the hitter. I'm looking for JD Martinez.
Yeah.
To stay healthy, because he had a rest day 3.
Right.
I liked that matchup against Lance Lynn, so I thought it was just, body maintenance. But I want to see him. He's looked good. He's looked like the guy that they signed, but I want to see if it stays consistent, because they're going to need him. Especially they need a run producer, and
right.
He is that. I want to see if it's a sustained thing. I want to see if that swing, that timing, he's not getting beat. He's not just guessing to have success, and he could still make adjustments, which I do think, but that's the one I'll be paying attention to. I thought you were going to ask me on the other side of the ball.
I mean, you can tell me that too, Jerry. I'd be happy to hear.
Shota Imanaga, the lefty that they got from Japan, he's a stud. And everything was all about Yamamoto, understandably.
Sure.
But this guy is a more established, veteran player, and he's one of the best pitchers in the game. Right now it's very early. I don't expect him to be all the way there at the end, but this guy's a stud. I haven't seen him pitch much, so I'll be locked into that series.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, we've mentioned a lot of unusual things about the Mets this year. A traditionally bad offense versus lefties. We're top 10 offense right now against left-handed pitching. Just one of those years where everything's
with Lindor batting like 0.90 against righties.
It's crazy. So
he's batting better left-handed. It's all backwards.
And like with the game 3 against Imanaga, I'm really curious to see what that lineup looks like. There's a chance you could see like a Martinez and Vientos 5-6 with Marte back in the lineup. Like that has a chance to be like what we might see a lot of in May with everyone healthy and the Mets' best guys out there. So that'll be a good test for them. I don't know, man. Like I'm feeling still pretty good about the team. I know we're a hair over 500. Objectively, we've had kind of a bad stretch. They lost the last game of the Dodgers series. They lose 2 out of 3 twice in a row. I don't know. Maybe it's that walk-off magic, like just staying on me a little bit, but I feel pretty good about the team this week. And I'm excited to see more of the role players like Vientos, like Tyrone Taylor get into games and make impacts.
Yeah. This is a rough stretch where guys aren't healthy or aren't up. It's a weird thing. So if they stay afloat until those guys get going, I love what I've seen. Mendoza's got these guys fighting. They haven't quit one time this year. They haven't looked like they were going to lose, like just rolled over one time. They've gotten beat plenty of times, obviously, but they have been in most of the games that they've lost. A lot of it was they're chasing down a deficit right off the bat, trying to play from behind every day. They've had so many comeback victories because of it, but Mendoza's got them pushing, man. And I like what I see. If they can get their stars to be stars, they're going to do some real damage.
So we got this Cubs series at home. Go on the road.
You want to run through the matchups just fast?
Yeah,
we won't talk about it.
So in game 1 tonight, we got Severino versus Jameson Taillon. Taillon's had a pretty good season so far after a tough one last year.
He just came back off the IL. I think he's had two really good starts. So
kind of weird. 2 former Yankee teammates who have had their struggles going head-to-head for new teams, having great years, both of them. Severino with a 2.67 ERA so far this year. Minaya has a 3.33. He got pulled before the 5th inning ended last time out. Needs some length from him. He had that really good first start against the Tigers where he went, I think, 5 perfect innings, pitched over 6 there. Javier Assad is going to go against him, and then Shota Imanaga, 4-0, ERA below 1. Can the Mets be the team to finally crack him? It'll be Jose Budo against him in Game 3. And then Game 4, I didn't prep because I didn't know it existed. I'm not going to lie to you. I know Hauser pitches. I don't know who pitches for the Cubs. My bad.
I'm trying to see if I remember the board.
Let's see. I'm going to click through really quick. This is a professional podcast, guys. It is Ben Brown. Oh, fun. Interesting. I didn't know he was part of the rotation on the Cubs.
Who's Ben Brown?
He is the guy that the Phillies traded to the Cubs to get David Robertson in 2022. So making an impact for the team. Right. How about that trade knowledge?
That's definitely a Jolly Olive video in the wings.
If Brown turns out to be good, you never know. We love trade content over here.
Oh, hey, one of the fans on Twitter asked me if I was dyeing my hair on TV, but look at these grays.
Those natural grays, baby.
I wear them proudly. Just on the TV with product in, it looks jet black. But they're hanging out.
The new poster boy for Just for Men is Jerry Belevins. Let that gray show, man.
I will not hide them. Oh, you can see him much more.
Oh, the gray beard looks good though. I'm a big natural grain kind of guy. Like when my time comes, I'm gonna let it roll.
I don't know what I'm gonna do with the stash. I'm bored with it now. I might go back to a beard for a while. We'll see.
Jerry.
I don't know. You know me. I can't keep anything.
And I'm a sap for facial hair. I know that. I think that's it, though. I think we've it's been kind of a whirlwind episode, mostly about that last game, but Mets roster in an interesting spot. You got anything else?
Oh, let's see. Let me see if we talked about everything.
Go through your notes.
On my list.
Show
Are
your
you
notepad.
Ready?
Did you show it?
Tyrone Taylor, we talked about.
Right.
Lindor, Quintana, Vientos, Reed Garrett, the bullpen in general, Pete Alonso, Carlos Mendoza, and JD Martinez.
I like your checklist. So we notched everything. It's huge.
Got it.
Huge.
That's a golf clap.
That might have to be a running staple. Just Jerry's
Alonso
checklist
has 200 home runs. I have my notepad checklist.
That's huge. I think you're the bigger winner there. Guys, thank you so much for listening into this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, consider subscribing, hitting the like button. And if you're listening on a podcast app, leave us a review. We'd really appreciate it. We'll see you next week to recap the series that was against the Cubs and the Rays. We'll see you.
Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets, baby. Let's go Mark Vientos.
Right?
And happy birthday, Gary Cohen.
Oh, it is GC's birthday today. I'll text him. What a guy.
I'll text him.
45 years old.